Welcome to Morning Minutes with myself, Michael Burgio, and co-host Mark Novak. And this morning, we're going to be talking about how long does it take to buy a home? What are the trends we see with buyers out there of how long they're in the market for? I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. I think there's definitely some common timelines or processes that we see buyers go through and then they purchase the property. Good morning, Emma. I hope you're well. What do you reckon, Mark? What's like I think it's very common we see people going where we've really only just met them or they've just started looking for a property that weekend and they buy one. And on the other hand, we hear buyers saying, I've been looking for 6 months, 12 months. And you're like, okay.
We meet buyers that see 130, 140 properties before they actually buy something.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people think, how long should it take me to actually find something? You know, you can get a really good cross-section of the marketplace pretty easy if you're sticking to one price range, hey?
Yeah, so your head's half cut off on Insta, Mark. You want to put the camera up? We only got your eyes. Yeah. G'day, Luke. G'day, Jeff. I reckon Luke would give some great insight into this sort of buying timeline because, I think sometimes buyers, do you reckon let's just make the assumption that the pre-approval and all the finances are in order. Morning, home loans, rate price. Oh, Ray, how are you, mate? Let's make the assumption that the finances in order. They're just finding something they like. And I think a big thing that holds people back is they haven't decided internally or made the decision if it's an investment or they're going to live in it. I find when buyers are at that crossroads, it's very hard to come to the conclusion to buy the property because there's things they like from the investment side and they may not like the aspect if it's their personal home. So I find that can really drag on the process. But what do you reckon, Mark? What do you reckon a timeline is?
If you don't have money approved, it's like going to a shop without money in your pocket. All you're going to do is walk around and window shop the whole time. So you're never really going to do a deal. So like you said, assuming the person is approved with finance and ready to go, and I think you can see on Facebook, we've got the image of Dumb and Dumber. It's more just tongue in cheek. It's not saying people are dumb, whether they buy quickly or whether they take, whether they see 130 properties. Look, I really think the number one thing you got to do is satisfy yourself because you don't want to be living in regret. So I think you want to know that you have done the right thing, the due diligence in your world, enough due diligence in your world to say, I got this right. Because there's nothing worse than buying something and then having remorse or regret or self-doubt about it. So I think sometimes some of the cats that we see that go out and buy the first property they see, it actually sits well with them and they're like, got it. They can justify it whatever way. The other people that go out and see 150 properties, well, that's their way of justifying so they can sleep at night when they've got their mortgage. I guess there's no really wrong or right, but if you said school of hard knocks, guys, what do I need to do? I think four hard weeks of searching, I think probably 10 to 20 properties a day if you can. And I think what people never do is they don't queue up properties one behind the other outside of opens. If you go to a big agency, like if you go to our agency, for instance, you can say, look, guys, you have 8 two-bedders. Can someone jump in a car and show me all 8 at once, please? I'm ready to buy. And, that's really efficient. That's really efficient hunting and you're going to get a good cross check. So I reckon personally, the answer is probably about 4 weeks. And on a weekend, probably seeing 10 to 20 properties. And that's a great cross section in the market.
Yeah. And I think, so what do you think holds people back do you think it's really that they can't find a property that they like? Or do you think it's the property or
no?
Do you think they are very scared? They don't have enough knowledge. They're too scared of getting ripped off or doing something wrong that they're too cautious. I.e., if they had more information and they trusted the value of a property and if it sort of can get a bit more support information about the market they're in, then they will feel more comfortable to buy. Do you think it's more afraid of, I don't know, buying something wrong, getting ripped off, spending a couple extra dollars on a property purchase, rather than really not being able to find something they like?
You don't forget, in terms of the value of the property, and if you're scared about that, your bank's going to roll through a bank valuer. So a bank valuer is going to verify the value of the property. So if you're wrong and you're paying too much for a property, the bank valuer will pull you up on it and say, we're not going to give this the rubber stamp because it's too much money. So I think in terms of value, you don't have to worry too much. And, you know, common sense goes a hell of a long way, particularly if you've seen a cross-section of 10, 20 properties, you're going to have a really good reference. But, Michael, I think the big one is, you know, is it suitable for you?
Yeah, Amal made a great comment. It's the people they speak to afterwards. So they go, which is so true. They go speak to the agents, they go see the properties, they have all these good thoughts, and then they go to a friends and family barbecue and they just probably hear the worst stories in the world. They get told, Luke has Luke has a name for them. Luke, if you can help me here, you have a saying or something to do with that scenario where you get all the advice from people who have nothing to do with real estate, and it's I'm trying to think of it. I remember hearing on a couple of your talks, they just go into, I think that's probably the biggest thing. So yeah, that's a good point. So what's then how do you counteract that? Like, do you got to get it in writing from an agent, Mark, or how do you sort of prepare yourself? Because, well, just information or what, like when you go to the family barbecue, because what are the concerns people bring up with the family at that family barbecue sort of thing? They probably say,
well, I've always thought with opinions are like an arsehole, everyone's got one, but you know, I love
Jeff, Eddie the expert. Yeah, I called them Eddie the expert.
Eddie the expert.
Yeah, sorry, Jeff.
You know what? If Eddie the expert is at the parents' barbecue giving you their point of view, I would take everyone's point of view. But the point of view that I would take the most and I would assess the most is if the person that's giving you that point of view has what you want. Okay.
Yeah.
So, you know, there's no use an 18-year-old, a 17-year-old that is in year 11 that is super passionate about property telling the 35-year-old that they shouldn't be buying a 1-bedroom, they should be buying a 2-bedroom. Do you know what I mean? I think you've got to be looking at the astute people that have the accomplished people that have done property purchases, that have lived in a 1-bedder, have lived in a 2-bedder, to give you their opinion between a 1 and 2-bedder.
I think that's gold. That's gold. Where it's always good to listen to everyone's opinion and because it's information advice. So listen, but that's a very good way to just sort of in your mind qualify that opinion and see how far you take it. Because if they've got 10 properties, for example, they're always buying and selling, and in the area that you're looking at, and they say, hey, maybe just double check this, then that's a very valid thing to look at. But if they've never bought a property in their life, then you may be like, okay, let's maybe not take that as much. But you know what would be, which is just as, I think a good thing you can implement is you get these opinions and then you call the I go through the reservation you've got. Because I find we have a great conversation with a buyer on the weekend. They go back, they speak to Eddie the experts, and then they're just like, fuck it, not buying a property. They're so put off. Instead of doing that, I would then call the agent, say, hey, I was at a barbecue. These are some of the things that came up from family and friends. I value their opinions. I would like your opinion on their opinion. And,
so for anyone who's just tuned in, we're talking about how long it should take to buy a property, to find a property in the marketplace. You know, should you be looking for a long time, a short time? What is a long time? What is a short time?
Yeah, and like I said, I don't think there's any right or wrong, but it's just getting through those processes. Oh, turn the camera. Because the realistic, as you said, Mark, if you see, especially in most areas when there's only really, let's say houses in DY, there's really at a time, there's probably 2 to 3 on the market. And what really helps buyers you've got, say, 2 to 3 houses on the market, all with different agents. It's not like anyone has a monopoly on the price or the product and they're just manipulating the prices of it, almost like you think petrol. There's only a couple of people that supply it, and one day it's this and one day it's that. So you're always very skeptical of like, well, what is the real price sort of thing. With property, it's really great, really I find fair for consumers because they're all different independent properties, all different independent owners, and a lot of the time all different agents. So it's really the buyers setting that sort of price. So you can sort of feel a little bit of comfort where that's at. And I think a good barometer would be how long it's been on the market and how many people you get through the open home. So if it's guiding 1.5, you get there and there's 20 people through, you can sort of say to yourself, well, it's probably within reason of pretty fair. I'm happy to take the next step in my own due diligence to see if it works. Where if there's only one person there in their first week, you may be able to read into it, but obviously case by case.
And does it change between being an investor and being an owner-occupier? Ray Price has just asked that question. I think, look, it's probably in terms of smelling out value, in terms of sniffing out, suitability and stuff like that. I don't think so. I don't think it really should change as an investor or an owner-occupier. Look, probably as an owner-occupier, you need to get personal preferences wrapped around you a little bit. You know what I mean? So if you need a garage, well, straight away you've knocked out half of the properties. Whereas as an investor, garage, no garage, it doesn't really profile any differently as an investment. So probably a little bit easier on an investor and a bit quicker as an investor to buy something.
100%, because with an investment there, I love, it's very, I like that because the issue when you're looking for your home now, I think people got to get realistic and they sort of feel like they're buying it forever, which we always agree, buy and hold. But you don't have to live in it forever. You can always move out. I think a lot of people, when they're looking at when they're 20, 25, they're trying to pick the property that they're going to be in for the next 20 years. I think just sort of lower those expectations and bring them back a bit more realistic. And like as Tom Panos always says, it's a marriage. It's a property, not a marriage. If you don't like it, you can sell it. If you don't like it, you can move to another one. So when you're looking in that time frame, look to see if it works now and the numbers make sense. It's always great, those investors, because they're just looking at the numbers. And as we went through yesterday with the capital growth, wherever you buy, you're going to do well. So I think the real issue is when people...
That's a really interesting exercise. And you're right. How does that tie into buying something fast or quick? Well, I think given the relevance of how long you're going to be owning the property, and the odds are you're going to be owning it for a long time, it sort of doesn't matter whether you take a long time or take a short time to buy. Hey. Yeah,
Ray just nailed it on Insta. Wherever you live for 20 years, you're not going to remember the price you bought it for. So don't get caught up with that sort of the price. It sort of ticks a lot of the boxes. I think really with property, if you've got 10 boxes and if the property ticks 7 of them, go for it. You're never going to find that 10 out of 10. With that, I just find, because Mark, when someone tells you they've been looking for 12 months, I sort of feel sorry. It doesn't make me feel good because it makes me think something like there's something missing, either that an agent's not giving them or there's something missing as in someone,
they've made a sport out. They've made a sport out of it rather than getting the job done.
Yeah, and I suppose there's people out there that love looking at properties and going to open homes, which is fair enough. I just find if you've been looking for 12 months, the market can change so much in 12 months that the research you did and the conclusions you came to 3 months ago, they're just not valid. So you can get yourself in a bit of a rut and a hole and a very repetitive cycle. And then it gets even harder because then, especially if prices are going up, Mark, how hard is it when people say to us, oh, I've been looking for 12 months and this was 600 grand and now it's 750. And you're like,
we haven't covered that. You know how we're talking about how long it takes to buy a property. I know people that were looking 6 months ago, and I had this conversation with Lisa Novak the other day. Get this one. They had to select Lisa or another agent. They were going to buy a house from Lisa. They were going to.
Lisa just joined in. Her ears are burning. G'day,
Her
Lisa.
ears are burning.
Lisa just.
It was yesterday. Lisa can verify this. So this was.
Yeah.
So Lisa, just so you know, this was Kingsway we're talking about. So these guys selected another agent. Unfortunately, the agent didn't get the job done, and that was probably about 9 months ago. Now, I'm quietly confident, because we sold another identical one in the block for more money, so we would have got that money. Quietly confident we would have got that property sold. Quietly confident they would have got into a house. Because they've taken so long to buy it, because they've taken so long to execute this exercise, they are now going to be taking a mortgage on of $200,000 to $300,000 more. Yes, they're going to be selling their unit for a little bit more today, but they're paying a lot more for a house today. So I think also, guys, you've got to be careful. Don't take too long to buy on an upwards rising market. It will cost you more money. Yes, the property, if you're a property owner presently at a lower value, yes, that's gone up, but it hasn't gone up as much as the house. So you will, and don't forget, you're taking this mortgage on for 20 to 30 years. That extra $200,000 mortgage, because you didn't buy 6 months ago, you will take on for 20 to 30 years. That's how important timing is getting at the moment.
Great
especially,
point, Mark.
Especially what they're saying about the predictions on property prices. Don't wait.
Spot on, because for the, it just, that sort of just clicked. Like the last 2 years, we've been given this, what do we call it? The decompression, where you sell your apartment for 800 grand, which may have been worth 850 before, but you sell it for 50K less. But the house you were buying in Narrowena, which in the peak was 1.5, you're buying it for 1.3 now. Like that was helping us get clients to transition.
Well, that's right.
It's the other way.
We invented that word. That phrase for that situation 1 or 2 years ago within all of our reps. What we were saying to buyers is it's called price compression.
Yeah.
You know, we've said it's because units were worth less value than what they were 2 years before. People were going nuts. People going, man, my unit was worth 800,000. Now it's worth 700. So we turned up at the dining room table and said, great news. And they were like, what? We're like, great news. Your prices, you've lost 100,000 on your unit.
Congratulations.
And now they were like, I was like, great news. And I'm like, what do you mean? Well, you want to buy a house, don't you? Yeah. Well, guess what? The unit is worth 100,000 less, but guess what? The house is worth 200,000 less.
Hey.
And they go, and you're taking the mortgage on for how long? 20 years. So you work it out. You're actually better off. And they're like, yeah. We said, that is called price compression. So now that's gone. Now we're almost back to where we were.
What is it now?
April, we're back to almost where we were. I would buy now. I wouldn't muck around and spend 6 months looking to find the perfect property, because it's a moving target and it's moving away from you faster than what you can save the money.
It's a very big one. Those upsizes now, they sell their unit for 100 grand more, but they're buying for 200 grand. I wonder.
Or 300 grand.
Yeah, that extra. I'm just thinking.
We look at a Narrowena house. A Narrowena house you could have secured at $1,050,000 2 years ago, 1.5 years ago. Narrowena house you're paying 1.4, 1.5 now.
Yeah,
that's about 400K.
It would definitely like getting that extra 100 grand. Yeah, it's going to be interesting, because now the big thing is, well, your serviceability, which was already an issue the last couple of years. That's going to be even harder. Like,
good point. And
serviceability, that price point.
Serviceability. Did you say Serbian ability?
Yeah, Serbian ability.
Serviceability. Look, serviceability is going to be if the market goes up 10%, your serviceability of buying goes down 10%.
Yep. So not
'Cause your
only
wa- your
paying
wage is-
more.
Your wage is not going to go up 10% for most people. So, except for you, Michael, of course, a lot more than that. Yeah, that's fact. So, I think that's a wrap.
Yeah, that's a wrap. Oh yeah, that's 20. Jeez, we're good. Alrighty. Any questions, guys? Hit us up. Share and win. $50 being drawn on Saturday. Tag someone that adds value to.
That's
We're
right.
giving away. I don't even think I have cash on me. Anyway, giving
Where's
away.
the cash? Where's the cash? It's got to be under the keyboard.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
guys, don't forget, guys, the
Oh,
$50 if you do a share today. If this can help a friend, share it on your post, tag a friend in there. There's $50 in it for you as a share.
Yep.
We're going to be doing this.
We're going
we're going to be
viral.
doing this more regularly. But help us help your buddies by sharing this post. And this post was about.
I was reading Lisa's comment. I sold a huge Diva house. Yeah. This post is about the buying process, how long it could take, some general chit chat. Because I'm sure buyers scratch their head going, am I crazy? Is it normal? What's normal? So here's our perspective on what sort of goes through your mind. So yeah.
Giddy up.
Giddy up. Alrighty, guys, that's the take. Speak soon.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Mr.
Mark.
Burgio.
Cheers. Bye.